by allowing Commissioner Castro to make a statement, and then we can allow everybody to respond.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think the concerns that I want to allay tonight are from the musicians. There was a court case earlier, I guess last year, I believe it was, that was unrelated to parks. It was, some of you have read about it or heard about it or whatever, and it was basically a case where people were, I think outside of the Empire State Building, I don't know the full case, they were advertising and soliciting people to take a virtual helicopter ride around Manhattan. And somehow there was a court case involved, and the courts made a ruling on it. And what they found was that the court's decision, our rules and regulations that were promulgated about a year and a half ago in 2010, or 2 years ago now, that they were somewhat technically in conflict with this court's decision. So in order to be in compliance with it, we had to make this change in the rule, and which brought in the musicians, basically, performers. And this is what I want to straighten out here tonight. Washington Square Park is a park that for decades, as we all know, musicians have flocked to play music. This technical change, or this slight adjustment to the rule, is not going to affect the musicians who come to the park to play. And let me explain, with one exception. And let me tell all the ways it will not. First of all, if you come to play music, you come here, you're going to play, whether it's the saxophones, the combos that are there, the guys and gals who sit on the benches, who play, they sit on the grass, whatever, wherever. They stand by the Garibaldi statue and play, all of those places, the piano, you're fine. You don't need a permit. You're not going to be told to leave the park. You're not going to get a ticket. You're fine. You can do that. If you sit on the park bench or anywhere and you have you open your guitar case or your instrument case, you play sax or whatever you play, or you put a hat out or something, or you pass the hat after whatever, you're fine. That's fine. You can do that. It's not going to change. You don't have to be X feet away from this or any of that jazz. You don't have to do that. You can play under the arch, which the piano guy was playing. Was that you the other day? Yeah. You're under the arch. You have to, obviously, and I think I saw you on the East Path a few weekends ago when they had the pillow fight. And as long as there's a distance between you and the benches, and so people can obviously walk through the paths and everything, which there were in both cases, you're fine. If you're not blocking a sidewalk, which is if you're a music group, you're not doing that. I haven't seen them blocking anything. I want to tell you, you're fine. This is not an issue that we find a particularly difficult issue for us here. It's not because Washington Square was a problem and we wrote this change or something. It has nothing to do with it. Nothing to do with Washington Square Park. Nothing to do that we thought there was a problem in Washington Square Park. Absolutely nothing to do. And you will not have a problem. Here is the only thing that could be an issue, which is this. And I know the community board has said they don't like, and others have said, we don't want commercialization of things, whatever. If you are, in fact, putting out all your CDs that you want to sell, a bunch of CDs on the ground, it's not that you can't even sell those. You can sell those without a permit, but you have to get a stand so that people don't trip over them, whatever. And just as in the expressive art rules that we issued a couple of years ago, you have to get a stand. It's got to be small. It can be a minimum of 2 feet up to 5 feet high, 3 feet deep by, it doesn't have to be 3 feet, less than 3 feet, up to 3 feet, and up to 8 feet wide. If you want to do that. But if you're sitting on the bench and you're playing or something, and you got your CDs on your lap or something, that's fine. That's okay. It's so that you don't obstruct things. It's so you're not interfering with people. But if it's what I'm describing to you, you're okay. It's fine. It's not a problem. We don't see it as a big problem, especially in Washington Square Park. you're fine. So I want to reassure people, we're not expecting, this goes into effect next week on the 8th. And also what we are going to do, and Captain McCants is here, and we are going to make sure our PEP officers know to explain it to people, because it can be confusing. I understand that. And people read stuff and they go, oh, well then that means I can only be this many feet away, I got to be at least 5 feet from a bench, and 50 feet from the monuments or something. That's if you've got your stand and you're selling a bunch of CDs. It's not if you're playing your music. That's fine. You can be under the arch. You can be next to the stuff, as you've always been. It's not going to change. The only issue will be if you then decide to sell your CDs or whatever, and you've got a bunch of them, if you got them in your lap, or you're holding on to them, or if you got stuff stuck on you, buttons you're selling, whatever, you know, that's different. It's not interfering with anybody. Obviously, you can't put all your stuff all over the benches and prevent people from sitting on the bench, but you know that, you don't do that, I haven't seen that. So I want to reassure you, there's no other issue here. It's gotten, you know, some attention through confusion, which we can understand, because it is confusing at first blush when you look at this. But that's what it is.
Will you put it in writing?
Excuse me.
Yeah, we are, yes, that's a good question. We are doing a question and answer sheet that we're going to be handing out, a Q&A thing, so people can see this. It's a very good question. And our park enforcement officers will be going around, I don't know if this week, maybe this week, but certainly, hopefully by the weekend, and certainly a few days before this, so we can educate the public, explain, answer questions. And this is something we've done before. We will do that, and we will tell people, if we even encounter people who fall into this, look, you know, you've got, this is what it is, you know, think about it, hope you can, you know, if you have any questions, this is how you do it. And we're not looking to cause an issue. We think it's fine in Washington Square. We don't think we have an issue in Washington Square.
Let me just start with Toby.
Yeah, that was my first question. I think it's really important to put in writing because it is confusing. It's not easy to transmit verbally, and I think people need it in writing.
I agree.
The other thing I wanted to ask, because I think that some confusion, some of the confusion and a lot of the concern was caused by events of, I guess, a year ago or 2 years ago, where there were actually quite a few summonses issued. And summonses issued to people who didn't expect them because they were doing things that they had normally done, and summonses were not issued. So I think it would be helpful if you would clarify what happened then and why it happened. And I don't mean like going into all
I don't.
but just to have an understanding that something happened that's not going to happen.
Somebody went off basically and enforced the strict letter of the law or whatever. It's not even clear to me exactly. It's been a few years. I'd have to go back and look at it. But I think I made it when I came to the Parks Committee meeting that was soon after that, and explained to everybody and said, look, that is not going to continue. That is not something that was our intent or policy, and I think events have borne me out on that one. And I think that musicians will say, and everyone else will say, yeah, that's right. It was something that happened, and it hasn't happened since, and we don't intend it to happen.
Thank you.
Yes?
Yes, Sharon.
Who was the somebody who just happened? PEP officer?
Yeah, PEP officer, yes.
So if you have like a charity case out to collect money and you have CDs in it, can you do that? Because I see that
Probably, yeah. I'd have to look at that one. If that might become an issue, I don't know, but that I have to look at a little more. We've discussed all this, and it's really more if you had like if you had a bunch of CDs out there, then you might have to get a stand, yeah. But you can still do it. I mean, you could do it, but it's really meant to, if there's a commercial aspect to this and you're blocking an area, selling and making money on something in that way, you're blocking the area, then you have to get a stand. If you're putting the hat out, if your case is open and people traditionally put money in, that's fine. That's not a problem at all.
So the case can be open to collect money, but
Yes.
you can't have CDs in it. I think that's going to be really confusing to people, and maybe
We will
PEP
clarify.
officers who are enforcing
We will
it.
put that, as I said, we're going to have a Q&A, we have a very simple thing that would say something like that. If I do this, or if you do this, what will happen, or is this a problem? And then it would be an answer. If that happens, then this is what the
Right, because in
thing
theory,
is.
having the
Yes.
guitar case open, whether there's CDs in it or not, it's no more obstructive than just having it open.
Yes, we will clarify that. That's a very good question.
In each of these cases, and I think all the questions that are going to come, should we separate them between Washington Square Park and other parks, or are they not to be, or are the answers not different?
No, the answer's not different. Yeah.
Okay, so
The-
you have an informal kind of statement that says that there won't be a problem with enforcement. But it would seem the best way to make this absolutely clear and sure would be to pass legislation. Is there any intention to do that?
Well, parks rules and regulations, I'm not a legal expert, but it acts as legislation in the sense of the administrative code. I mean, we issue summonses to it or enforce it in a variety of ways. The parks rules and regulations were basically drawn up by Frederick Law Olmsted when he helped create and design Central Park. That's the genesis of them. And almost all of them were based on his rules and regulations many years ago in the 1800s. And they have the force of law, so it doesn't require a legislation. It's something that, and then there's public comment and all of that, so we have the authority to do that. We do it. But we will be spelling out very clearly in writing what the rules are and how they are applied and how they are to be considered.
The rules that I saw that were passed on April 2nd include any exchange of money is considered vending, and that no vending can be done within 50 feet of a monument. No vending can be done within so many feet of a bench, which basically makes it impossible to do any of what you just said in Washington Square. Then you're confusing the issue, because that's what's written. That's what's written in the rules, and you just contradicted everything in that in what you just said.
That we will spell out. That is what is the rule. And we will be putting it out very soon, in a matter of days, to make it very clear.
Can you just repeat the question? I'm not sure everyone heard the question, so.
Well, the rules that I saw that were from April 2nd meeting stated that any exchange of money is considered expressive matter vending. Any expressive matter vending must be done on a medallion spot. There are no such medallion spots in Washington Square.
Correct.
In addition to that, it may not be done within 50 feet of a monument, within 5 feet of a bench, and that pretty much rules out every part of Washington Square. I was ticketed in 2011, and I asked the PEP officer to show me a spot that would be within those confines of those rules. There's one spot that's about 12 feet in diameter over in the west side of the park in that open circle.
That doesn't get overlapped.
That doesn't get ruled out by all those rules. So you're telling, although those rules are written, you're saying that none of those are going to be enforced on us.
What I'm saying is,
And that's, excuse me, but that's a contradiction, and that confuses the entire room.
so can I answer your, as I said, so let me answer your comment. First of all, it's not true that there are no places to sell, as you described, in the park, first of all. Number two, under those rules and regulations. Number two, there are no medallions in Washington Square Park. That's fine. You don't need to be at a medallion location if you have a stand. In Union Square, the High Line, Battery Park, and parts of Central Park, you do, and those continue. But that's not the case in Washington Square Park. And what I'm saying is, and I'll say it again, if you're playing your music, it's fine. If you have your hat down there or your guitar case or whatever case, it's still fine, and you can play anywhere.
What about big sand paintings?
Sand paintings are good.
Yes.
Did anyone discuss the possibility of maybe putting up a sign with some of these rules on it and placing different areas around the park? I don't know if anyone brought
Might
that up
do that.
before.
I'll look at that.
Why wasn't the park going to just put a place, the medallion where you are allowed?
It's not needed in Washington Square Park. It's not an area where it's a problem. We're not having a problem.
We don't want medallions.
Yes, Bill.
Yes, Washington, I've already introduced myself, I won't do that again. Washington Square Park is magical, and we want to keep it magical. And I think your rules could permit the magic to continue. In the 1950s, when I was an NYU student, it was warm and welcoming. In the 1960s, when I moved into